One of my goals has been to create I suppose you could call it a benevolent crop, a very sustainable, resilient crop that is going to come through, whatever the growing conditions with very low inputs. But I also want it to be, in harmony with nature around it. I mean, that sounds a little vague, but it really is meaningful. This field is full of wildlife, from insects, and I've got badger trails everywhere through it, weeds, and all of that comes together to form an ecosystem.
What I really like about Toad is its focus on biodiversity. We've come to recognize this as an incredibly important part of a sustainable future. It's taken second place to climate change. We're far too dependent on monocultures, and monocultures are very vulnerable to pests and therefore require pesticide. And pesticide also means that we wipe out the insects upon which we're dependent for pollination.
It goes beyond organic in the sense of genetic diversity. If you're a modern organic farmer, most of them tend to grow modern cereal varieties that are genetically uniform. In the medieval period, crops were very genetically diverse. They were called land races. So every plant in the field, you could say, is a bit genetically different from its neighbor, which means it grows differently. Some were adapted to clay soils, some might grow better in light soils, some ripened early or ripened a bit later, were tolerant to frost in different ways, at different heights. Every characteristic you can come up with, they were a little bit different. And that created this buffered system in a physiological sense. So whatever the weather, the crop would produce something. In diversity, there is strength.
Being a sustainable business is absolutely critical, not just because it's nice to the planet, but because it is the right sort of business that we need in the 21st century. We're facing a world that's under increasing environmental pressure. With the population moving towards 10 billion and a middle class of 5 billion, we're consuming Earth's resources at about 3 to 4 times their ability to reproduce themselves. What we've got to do is fundamentally change the way that we produce through agriculture, change those agricultural supply chains and make them sustainable and biodiverse for the long term. Consumers are increasingly aware of just how important it is to be sustainable, and they're making lifestyle choices that are sustainable. That's why Toad and the spirit of Toad is such a good business to invest in.
When you're sipping whiskey from this field, you're participating in preserving genetic diversity, but also enhancing it and taking it forward. You're participating in that process.